Hello, hi everyone. Uh, we will do some more React today, which is very exciting. Before we get started, can everyone, I guess everyone, open up the questions doc and queue, because we're doing a workshop, so it will probably help to ask a lot of questions and join the help queue. Also, out of curiosity, can we do really quick, raise your hand if you're on Piazza? Nice. Okay. If you're not on Piazza, you should join Piazza. I think sometimes when you click the link, it says, or it doesn't work. But what you have to do is you have to go to add class and then add web lab. Might be under 6148, but should work. Okay, so let's get ahead and get started. So React, the big thing of React is to write any website. Oh, do you guys have questions? Oh, can you just share the questions, Zach? That might do it. Let me know when. Is it good now? Good, yes. Okay, perfect. So in React, to write any website, you basically treat it as one component. It's one thing. Your website is literally just the app component. And how it works is you define the app component in a separate file. And so, like, for example, we have Instagram, and the whole website is just one component. And then that component is defined in a separate file as a bunch of other components. So like you can divide it into the navbar, the feed, the sidebar. And then each of those is in turn defined in a ton of other components. For example, the feed probably has thousands of posts, and the sidebar has a bunch of sections, and even the navbar has a ton of sub things. And yeah, so here, let me mute my computer. Hopefully that's fine. But yeah, so you can divide your app into a ton of little sub components, and you do this because eventually you'll get down to a level of component where, this is very easy to implement. It's just some HTML code. So then in that way, you can break it down into chunks, and you can implement each chunk, and then it works. And then we have this concept of props, and props are inputs to the component, because a lot of times you want to be able to customize the component. We don't want a different post component for every post. We'd rather give it the input of the name, the post body, maybe the number of likes, maybe the comments, whatever other inputs you want to give a post. But those are props. Inputs, props, same thing. So it's like the inputs to a function. Props is short for properties. I honestly did not realize that props was short for properties for the longest time, but that's why it's called props. And then state. State is each component can have its own like internal variables that you can update. So sometimes you want to store information inside of a component, and you do that through state. And that's the syntax for how you make a state variable. For example, if you have like a user component, and the user can have different statuses, so it can be busy, the user can be online, you might want to make that a state variable. And then when they come online, you can set their status to online. And when they become busy, you can set their status to busy. And a way to represent the app is through a component tree where you have app on the top, and you can divide it into the components, and each of those components can be divided into more components. And another thing you can do is you can write the props along the arrows, because the props are passed from a parent component to the child component. For example, like in the code of another component, you can include fifth component. And when you include fifth component, you can pass in name equals Joe, numcat equals 4. And then you'll have those props to access inside of fifth component. And then also components can have state. So I usually write those inside of the component because they're within the component. It's like the component's internal state. So the props are like along the arrows, and then the state is within the component. Yes. So let's make this tree for this Instagram example, just as an example. So we have the whole Instagram app, and then we divided it into the navbar, the feed, and the sidebar. So the code for the component would look something like, you define it as a constant. I like obviously you have to do all the imports and all the other stuff, but the simple version is you define app as a constant and you return HTML code. And in the HTML code, you can return the other components as your own little custom tags. And you can pass in props and you can have state. But then the sidebar can be divided into more things. And then you would just, in the sidebar file, in its own file, you would just tell it what to return. And you would return the components that you want. And they look like their own little HTML tags. And then the navbar would also be divided into all of its little components, like a bunch of buttons, a search bar. And you can also just have an image in the code. Like this is just HTML code. This is HTML, and you can include the components you want. So here I put the little Instagram icon, and then I put a search bar, and then I put nav buttons, and then those would be defined in their own files. And then the feed, we know, like your Instagram feed has tons of posts. So the code would just return all of the posts. And the post would be defined in its own file, and it would look like the same thing. So you define post as a constant, and it would take the props as an input, and it would do some random JavaScript stuff as a JavaScript function. And then it would return HTML code. So as an example, maybe it takes props, and then it might return an image with the source being the content, which was passed in to it. And then it might also have a like button with a like image and then 250 likes. And there might be state, like instead of 250 likes, maybe you want to store that in the component. So you have it be a state variable, and you can initialize it to 0. So you start out with 0 likes, and then you can include that variable. So now it will show you 0 likes, and it's stored as a variable. And then if you want, you can add an on-click to your button and have it increase the number of likes by 1 whenever you click on it. But yeah, these are all like, there's a lot of possibilities for what you could do. Like you can code posts however you want. It depends on what you want your post to do. But yeah, to recap that little intro, a React component, it lets you break down your code into chunks that you can reuse throughout your website and that are all independent. And a component is basically a JavaScript function that returns a bunch of HTML code. So you can think of it as just parts of your website that are HTML codes with components within them, something like that. And they can also have their own information that they maintain as state. They can receive information from their parents, which is props. And yeah, each component can take props as inputs and manage its own state. So that's all in the recap guide at weblab.2/React Guide 1. It might help to open it during the workshop, hopefully, because obviously this is all very new stuff. So having it open in another tab would be good. Okay, so what are we going to do today? In the next 40 minutes, we're going to actually start coding in React. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this part of Catbook. I don't know if you guys have already seen this, probably not, but this is, so Catbook is like our demo website that we're going to make throughout WebLab. And this is the profile page. Nico is an old staff member, and all this is I think we did this in the other workshop, the HTML workshop, but now there's some added functionality where if you click on the cat, it increases the cat happiness. So yeah, it's like a little cookie clicker game. So yeah, we're going to make this. If you guys want to check it out, you can also go to that link, weblab.2/profile. Okay, so to get started, you guys should open VS Code and open terminal. And can everyone type in this command into their terminal? This is related to the homework 1, by the way, the setup stuff. If you didn't get a chance to do that, please try to do it right now, and maybe some staff can come around to help. But could everyone type in node-v into the terminal? And if you don't get 16 point something, can you either put yourself on the queue, raise your hand, and okay, actually, can you raise your hand if you do get 16 point something? Okay, perfect. That's almost everyone. If you don't, put yourself on the queue. We'll come around to help. Okay, so now to actually get started. One thing that is good is to always open the Catbook React folder in VS Code. So like, I think something that some people do is just open the individual files, but it's really nice to have it all open as a folder. So I'll do that right now. VS Code, file, open folder, Catbook React, open. And then you should open your terminal, either in VS Code or wherever your terminal is, and make sure that your terminal is navigated to Catbook React. And then run these 4 commands and raise your hand when you're done. Nice. Okay, I guess you don't have to keep your hands up. I guess it might take a while, but I'll ask in a minute. One thing that might help is to close out of any unsaved files before we do this, just in case, but not necessary. So what this does while you guys are doing it is git fetch gets any updates from GitHub. So like I just edited something last night. So if you guys had cloned it before last night, you wouldn't have that edit, but git fetch would get that edit. And then git reset hard clears any changes you made. So it'll get back to the original state. And then you get workshop 2. And then npm install is this new thing, which you guys haven't done, but it basically installs all the necessary packages you need for React, something like that. Honestly, I'm not too sure the details of what it does, but it gets packages. Is everyone ready? Raise your hand if you're ready. Okay, that looks good to me. Okay, so first, we want to make this Catbook profile page. This is our goal. So let's try to make a component tree first. So we start with app. This whole website is app, as is every website. And then we divide it into the navbar and the profile. Very nice division. And then we're just going to code up the entire profile as one component, except we'll separate this little cat happiness thing into its own component. Just because it's like this weird thing that has functionality, like it increases. So might as well make it its own component, I guess. There's no like right answer on what should be a component, what shouldn't. It's all your design decision. Like how it's kind of like when you're writing code, you're trying to decide what to put in its own function and what to just leave in regular code. There's no right answer. It's just whatever you want. So yeah, so what you guys can do now, I'll do it, is go to the same terminal. And let me close out of this. So what I like to do is go to terminal, new terminal, and then I have a terminal in VS Code. And then for me, there's this little button, split terminal, and it gets me 2 different ones. And it's nice because in this terminal, I can do that command, npm run hotloader. And then I have this other terminal to work with. So we're just going to keep this terminal like this. And what the hotloader does is it makes it so that now you can go to this link, localhost 5000. And you can see the website. So this is the code in VS Code. Does everyone see it at localhost 5000? Yes? Okay. So what's in here right now is basically just the workshop 0 code. So I can give you a quick walkthrough of this code base, but there's a lot of files here. And a lot of them you don't need to worry about. But the ones that you do need to worry about are in this client folder, in the source folder, and we have this components folder. And this is important. These are all our components. So we open it, and in the components folder, we have app.js. That's the top level component. Our whole site is in app.js. And we can look at it. Let me increase this font. And it looks exactly like it did in the slides, except with some extra lines where we import React. We import our components, navbar profile. We have some CSS. And then we just return the components. This thing is like a div tag. It's like an invisible div tag. It's not that important to know what this is. It's just think of it as a div tag. And then you're wondering where the profile.js file, where is navbar defined? And they're defined in these folders. So profile is in this pages folder. And navbar is in modules. That's right here. Where you put them in the components folder, not too important. I like to divide them between modules and pages just because I guess, but like you can name these folders whatever you want. It doesn't have to be modules and pages. But yeah, right now there's nothing in the navbar. You saw no navbar on the website. And thank you. The profile just has all of our HTML code. So that's not really in the spirit of React, I'd say. Like, you want to divide your code up between the components. You don't want everything in one component. But that's how we have it right now. One thing to notice is everywhere where we had class earlier, it's class name, because in React, you need to use class name instead of class. Another thing we did is in front of all the CSS style names, the class names, we put the component name in front of it. And that's just like a design decision. It's not like you have to do that, but it helps figure out which CSS classes are for which components. It's an organizational thing. Okay, going back to the slides. Okay, so let's do our first exercise. So what I want you guys to do is implement a navbar. And how you do that is go to the navbar file, navbar.js, and put in some HTML code for the navbar. And then you can go to navbar.css and add some styles. Feel free to go wild. You don't have to make it exactly like what the Catbook navbar is. You can color it however you want. But yeah, I'll give you guys 5 minutes to do that. And if you need help, raise your hand or put yourself on the help queue. Our staff will come around. Can we do a quick thumbs up for done and thumbs down for for more time? Okay, I think that means more time. Can we do another thumbs up for done, thumbs down for more time? Okay, I think we'll continue. Feel free to take more time, that's fine. But we will continue. So I'm gonna do it real quick. So if you can see my screen, all I'm gonna do is type in this nav tag. The nav tag is just a div tag. I honestly don't know what it is other than a div tag. It probably gives you some screen reader stuff, but I just think of it as a div tag. And then I'm just gonna type Catbook. And then I look over at my page and you can see the navbar is there, Catbook, but it doesn't have any styling. So what I can do is I can add a class name. I can just call it, I'll just prefix it with navbar and then call it container. And then here, I'll add navbar container, add the style, and let's give it a background color of tomato. I didn't know that was the option. And then We can give it some padding. Let's give it like 40 pixels of padding. And let's also have the text have a style. So navbar text. So let's go back and then, so the container is just the outside of it. And then we'll give another div for the text. We could have just applied these styles to the navbar, or to the outer container, but it doesn't matter too much. And then I'm going to go back and let's give it a font size of 50 pixels and a font weight of bold and a font family. Let's do Courier New. No, let's do Arial. Oh, let's change the color. Let's say color white. And we got a navbar. That's amazing. Okay, so let's move on to the next exercise. These are just example solutions. This is the actual way to get the actual navbar, but okay, so let's get on the same page. So don't worry if you're not done. What you should do is close out or save any of the unsaved files that have that little white dot next to them. And after you do that, git reset hard, git checkout w2-step1, and yeah. And if you encounter any troubles in this part, add yourself to the help queue. Everyone good with this? Thumbs up if you're done. Okay, a little more time. Okay. So feel free to continue doing this, but I'll talk about what we're going to do next, which is adding cat happiness. So the whole exciting part of the web page is you can click the cat and it increases the cat happiness. I know it sounds like a very simple feature, but if you think about it, this is all Cookie Clicker is. And Cookie Clicker was a giant game that reached millions of people. And it was a very big success. So you don't need a very complicated web app to make it big. So we need to store this value of cat happiness. And what we're going to do is we're going to store a state somewhere. But states need to be in a component. We need to put that use state line somewhere. And we're going to either put it in an app, we can put it in navbar, we can put it in profile, and we can put it in cat happiness. So where we actually want to put it is we want to put it in profile. And the reason is because we want it to be that when you click on the cat happiness goes up by 1. And in order for that to work, we need to call that update function, update or set cat happiness. And we want to do that where the cat is. And the cat's going to be in profile. So we want to store the value of cat happiness inside a profile. And what that means is we need to store a state inside a profile and then pass it down as a prop into cat happiness. Because cat happiness also needs to know this value. So what we tend to do generally is store things as state in some component. And then if you need them in other components, you pass them down as props. So what that means is like, say like, okay, in a completely random example, if you needed some value in both the navbar and in cat happiness, what you would do is you would store it in an app as state and then pass it down to both navbar and cat happiness. Because you can only pass things down, you can't pass things up. That's how props work. But for now, we'll store it as state in cat happiness. So here's a little diagram to show what's going to happen. We'll have cat happiness as state in profile, and then pass it down as a prop. So how do we add state to a component? There's that magic line of code that adds a state variable. We use the useState function, and it gives us the variable name, or it gives us the variable, and it also gives us a way to set the variable. And inside of useState, we pass in the initial value of the variable. That's also in that React guide that I mentioned earlier, weblab.2/React guide 1 with hyphens. So I'm just going to do this exercise. So we want to add cat happiness as state in profile. So let me catch up. I didn't do that step of git reset hard. Oh yeah, that's another thing I didn't mention. What I like to do is keep the hot loader open in the terminal and then do the git steps in a different terminal so that I don't have to keep on restarting the hot loader. But that's just how I like to do it. So I'm going to go into the profile component. And I'm just going to add this use state line. So I'm going to add a state const cat happiness equal to React, or is equal to use state of 0. So we're going to initialize it to 0. And then the other thing we should do is import cat happiness, because we want to use the cat happiness component inside a profile. So I'm going to import cat happiness from, it's this file right here. I hope you guys also have this view of all the files, but it's very helpful. But we want to import it from, so right now we're in profile.js. You can see the path we're in right here. So we want to go to the parent directory. So we do 2 dots / modules / cathappiness.js. This just imports the component. So it gets that code. And now we can use it. Thumbs up if you've got those 2 lines of code. Okay. Feel free to continue. They're in the slides as well. But we're going to do this exercise. So can you guys add the cat happiness component into profile.js and try to put this header in front of it as well? And another thing to do is pass in the prop of cat happiness into the cat happiness component. And feel free to ask for help. Good luck. This is all in the profile.js file, by the way. Can we do a thumbs up if you're done? Thumbs down if you want more time. More time. Can people who have like installation related issues raise your hand real quick? Nice. Okay. Can we do another thumbs up, done, thumbs down more time? Okay. I think although people may want more time, it's probably just best if I just show it and we move on to the next step. So all it is here, let me undo my changes. I was just working on it. So all I'm gonna do here is, let me make this bigger. I want to insert the cat happiness component. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put in the cat happiness component, just like that. And we don't need these braces anymore. And I'm gonna look at the website. And I'm gonna refresh. Sometimes you guys might have seen like a white screen with nothing showing. What that means is that there's some error and you have to right click and go to inspect or somehow get to the JavaScript console and there'll be an error here. Like for example, let's say I didn't have this use state line. Then I'd get a white screen and then the error would say use state is not defined. So then I don't know if you guys can see that error. It's use state is not defined. So then you can just go fix the error, import use state, and you should be good to go. But basically, okay, I put the characters component and I see this. So I actually want a header too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a header, cat happiness. And I got my header, but it's ugly. So I'm going to enclose them in a div. And I'm going to give it the same style that was on all the other sections. So I'm just going to copy that over. And that looks better. As you can see, it looks a lot better now. If you want to give the title the same style as the other titles, you can just copy that over too. And bam. Yeah, that's that step. So are we done? No, we still haven't implemented the feature of cat happiness showing up. Oh, I forgot to do one thing. I wanted to pass in the prop. So I'm going to pass in cat happiness equals our state variable. So our state variable is cat happiness. So I'm just passing that in to the cat happiness prop. So now our state variable is an input to this component. But yeah, now we're almost done, but we just have to implement the actual cat happiness part. So what I'm going to do is go into the cat happiness component. So in cat happiness, you guys can follow along with me. I'm going to go into this component, click into the file. And I want to take props as an input. And return or display the counter. So props.cat happiness. And all this does is it takes the counter that we put into it, the component, and just displays it in our little div here. So now we see 0. So I'm going to do this real quick. Git reset hard, git check out W2 step 2. And then I'll breeze through this next step real quick. So to add the functionality, what you do is we'll do this exercise. We want to first go into profile.js and implement this increment cat happiness function. So how we're going to do it is in this function, we just want to set cat happiness to be cat happiness plus 1. So now whenever we call this function, cat happiness will go up by 1. So the last step is to call this function whenever you click on the cat. And to do that, you just go into you find the div for the cat, which is right here. And you just add in onClick equals increment cat happiness. And what this does is when you click on the div, I'll show you guys. Now when you click on the div, you click on the cat, it calls the increment cat happiness function and it increases cat happiness. And now you can do that over and over again. And it works. So yeah, we're running low on time. So if you guys are not caught up, don't worry, just stop what you're doing and close out everything. Or not close out everything, close out any unsaved files. And then you can git reset hard, git check out W2 complete. And once you go to W2 complete, you can go to localhost 5000 again, see the completed website, and you can see how it all came together. But that's today's workshop. Feel free to look over the code base and try to just get a feel of how the different files work together, how we formed that tree, the component tree. And yeah, we can do a little recap again. I wanted to do some sort of call and response thing, or like fill in the blank type guessing, but I think okay, let's do it. So shout out the word when we get to it. So we divide our app into and put 1 in each file. Each component is a function with as the input and returns HTML code, as you saw in the workshop. And each component also can store internal information that you can update as state. And parentheses allows to enter in HTML. Little curly braces allows to create a mini environment. Yeah, that was it. I just wanted some sort of interactivity. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, this is a little recap of how to write props, how to set state variables. And all this information is in that little React guide, weblab.2/React guide 1. So please look over that. And we'll have more React lectures later in the day. Now Noah's up with API and async. But yeah, thanks guys, appreciate it.